Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. This week, we're crossing the pond again. And you know, I always get so excited when I get to cross the pond and talk to someone outside of the U.S. I love my U.S. sellers, but I really like having international sellers on too. My guest this week is James. He runs the Etsy shop Hobbs Ceramics, and he is in Bicester in the United Kingdom. James, did I say that correctly?
Pretty much, yes. Bicester.
Bicester. Thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast. Can you please tell us a little bit about you and how you discovered Etsy?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm James. I'm from Bicester in Oxfordshire. I discovered Etsy just after uni back in 2015. So I did a degree in ceramics at Cardiff in Wales in the UK. And I'd already had a passion for ceramics through my childhood and then through college. But then after I did my degree, I was like, you know what, I've got some skills and I want to share them. And a couple of my friends, they were, selling like either a bit of fine art on Etsy or doing some little things. And I was like, you know what, I want to give that a go. So I opened my shop in 2015, and then, like most of us, I did nothing with it and worked full time for 4 years, and then really sort of got back into it in late 2019, moving into early 2020.
Yeah, what inspired you to turn your focus more onto it in 2019?
That's a good question. I had wanted to do it for so long, but my day job is I'm a retail manager, so I run either luxury goods stores or ready to wear stores, and where I am in the UK is we have a place called Bicester Village, and it's the sort of the second busiest tourist destination after Buckingham Palace.
Really?
It's crazy. We have huge international footfall, and if you work there, it basically just takes all your time. So sort of managing stores there, I ended up just sort of spending 40, 50 hours a week just doing that. And there were sort of periods of 6 months where I just wouldn't go in the studio at all. But then I managed to get a job outside the village in Oxford through 2018 going into 2019, and that's where I really started to get back into the studio, thinking, what do I want to do with this? Because I should sort of backtrack a little. At uni, I did a lot of sculpture, and I never really did anything on the potter's wheel. And throughout this time, sort of amongst sort of the breaks of uni, the breaks of not being in the studio, I was teaching myself how to throw. So by sort of 2018, early 2019, I was getting to a point where I could consistently make some things, and I really wanted to sort of share that with people, because it's no good sort of making hundreds of pots and having them stacked up in the house as much.
Yeah.
As much as I like my own work, you need to do something with it.
Right.
So I thought, let's really try with Etsy again, because I'd tried having my own website. I think that was 2014, where I actually had like an e-commerce, but that just wasn't getting any traction because I didn't spend any time driving the traffic. Whereas with Etsy, you can have, you have this portal to a whole world of customers that are ready to buy. Yeah. So I thought, why not give it another shot?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to talk about that because your e-commerce site, how soon did you set that up? Was it in tandem with your Etsy shop or before that?
So it was before. So I set that up, I think, because I mean it's a little foggy now, it's been so long.
Mhm.
I think I set up my e-commerce just after the first round of Etsy.
Okay.
So I think I started Etsy as my first aim to sell things.
Okay.
And then the e-commerce I had from 2016 to 2018. And in all those years, I made 2 sales. Um, and then I just closed it down because the thing is, when you're, using like e-commerce platforms, they tend to charge an arm and a leg just to sort
Right.
of host them. So I thought, well, there's no point in doing this when I can pay, 20 cents per listing to
Yeah.
just do it elsewhere,
Right. What platform were you on?
So my e-commerce was via Wix, Wix.com.
Okay.
Um, my website is still with Wix. It's just without the e-commerce added onto it.
Oh, okay. And do they charge for that to still have
Uh,
a website but without the e-commerce functionality?
yes, yeah. So I think my subscription is about £40 a year, and
Oh,
then on top
that's
of that, the
reasonable.
domain is like 20.
Okay. Well, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's not too bad, and it gives me sort of a website where people can go to for commissions, or if they just want to find out about me, then they can
Oh, okay.
as well.
That was what I was going to ask was there a purpose in keeping that running? So if someone comes to you for commissioned work, do you funnel them to your website, which if anyone wants to check it out, it's hobbsceramics.com. That's HOBBSCERAMICS, hobbsceramics.com.
Yeah, so I send them straight to my website if possible, and a lot of people find me now through my website. Um,
Okay.
so if they want to shop direct, then they'll click on the shop link, which then takes them to Etsy.
Oh,
But
I
then
see.
if they want to, say, do a custom set of something for someone's birthday, or whether it's like this year, there was a lot of fruit bowls for Christmas, oddly.
Oh.
Uh, I would just do it privately, because for me, trying to keep as much of the profit as possible is like the main thing. So if I
Yeah.
can, have a 2 or 3% transaction fee rather than a 10% overall fee for Etsy, then I'll do it that way.
Oh, right. Yes. And the 2 or 3% is you using something like PayPal for invoicing?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm still getting used to the whole making invoices. So I type up my own invoice on Word. Um,
Okay.
I then email it to them with some terms, just so if it's custom,
Yeah.
they can't return it and refund
Right.
it, that sort of thing. And then they just have the option to pay 50% on initial commission, and then they pay another 50% on completion.
Oh,
And I know
nice.
that there's many much more efficient ways to do it, um, but I just like doing it that way. It's sort of at the early stage that my business is in, it sort of
Yeah.
makes everything much clearer, and I sort of have full control over everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It is easier and yes, for sure you do get to keep more of the profit. When you're ready, if you want to upgrade like to a PayPal business account, which is free to do, all they require is that you have a business checking account, a business
Yeah,
checking bank account, and I think actually I don't know for the UK. I know for the US an EIN, which is or a TI, a tax identification number.
yep.
And their invoicing system, I have to tell you, I absolutely love their invoicing system because I use it as well to do off Etsy sales.
Oh,
And they track everything. They'll send reminders if someone hasn't paid. If you want to split the payment like you do into two, where you get 50% now and 50% when it's done, and you can
yep,
put the date when you're going to deliver it. So then PayPal will send them an invoice. They'll let you know they haven't paid, and all you do is click a button in an email to send a reminder. It's really, really easy. And the commissions, the fees are exactly the same as with a non-business PayPal account.
oh,
There's
that's
just more
amazing.
ease.
I was going to say, yeah, because when I looked at doing invoices for the first time, because I mean, until this year, I'd never really had the volume that I needed to think about organizing them.
Mm-hmm.
But anything to make that process shorter would be great, because um, for each customer, I probably spend about 20 minutes overall on admin, um, which is quite a long time, really, if it's sort of coming down to hourly rates.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're ready, look into that. I'll put a link to the PayPal business account page just for anyone who wants to check it out and see what additional features. I was actually taken aback initially because I thought, what's the catch? Are the fees higher? Or, there has to be, you can upload your logo, you can
Yes,
customize the invoices, but there actually isn't any. So I think they're just trying to help small businesses.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I never did ask you but I think folks can infer by now what you make and sell. But do tell us, what do you make and sell?
So I make a range of things, really. Sort of my whole sort of ethos is handmade, somewhat modern, functional pottery. So anything from mugs to fruit bowls to vases. Funnily enough, my best-selling item on Etsy last year was coasters.
Custom coasters?
No, just normal coasters.
Huh.
It's probably because it's my lowest price point. They came in at £8,
Okay.
and that was with free delivery. But people just loved them. I don't know why I sold so many, to be honest.
Well, because we were all sitting at home and drinking all day long. Drinking various things, not.
Yes, yeah.
And we're trying to save our tabletops.
It's it's a really funny thing. But then I haven't had them in stock for 2 months ish now.
Oh, wow.
Because they were driving nearly 1,000 visits a month.
Oh, wow.
Just on the one item, and I was like, you know what, that's quite good for a coaster.
Yeah. So for something like that, and not just the coasters, but everything you make, because I look at them and they're all beautiful and they all look unique. Do you keep an inventory of everything that you have? And how do you know how much of what to keep? Or is everything made to order?
So most things I have an inventory of.
Okay.
Basically the last sort of 12 months I've been experimenting with Etsy to see what actually sells. Because the majority of my sales now come from either customized mugs, or they're just standard mugs in different colors. So things like vases are a slower seller, and bowls are small bowls. Fruit bowls tend to do really well on Etsy. So what I tend to do with inventory is just make small batches. If I say my mugs, for example, there's a color called Blue Galaxy, and with that tends to sell maybe 2 to 3 items a week. So with that, I will make 10 on a Monday. They'll normally be finished within about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So then I always have maybe between 5 and 6 in stock, and then I will just keep on top of what I have that's selling and try not to make anything that is going to sit for too long.
Oh, wow. Do you have a day, and I guess I'm getting into your operations. So do you have a day for making, and then the rest of the week you're just fulfilling orders as they come?
Not really. So the problem with ceramics is it all takes so long to do.
Right.
So say in a normal week, for example, I might make on a Monday. So say I might make, I'll throw 20 mugs. Those are normally ready to trim and add foot rings to on Wednesday. So I'll do that on the Wednesday, and I will then add handles to them probably on the Thursday. And then those mugs need to sit for about 2 weeks to dry. And then they need their first firing, which is a bisque firing. It goes to about 1,000 degrees.
Wow.
And then I need to glaze them, which if I'm painting glaze, then it takes about half an hour a mug. And then if I'm dipping glaze, it takes like 30 seconds. And then those all go into another firing for another like 16 hours. So whenever I'm making anything, it's always, say if you wanted a mug, it would take you like 3 weeks to get it, if it's a made to order item. But I always have several things on the go. So if I have a mug, well, most of the things that I have in stock and they're ready to go. So they get dispatched the same day. And it says it quite clearly on my Etsy if it's made to order, just so you know there's no confusion.
Okay.
But then, you know, if I've then sold that mug, I know that I need to make another one this week to sort of fill that inventory back up, even though I don't necessarily track my inventory levels.
That was what I was going to ask next, was how do you keep track of all these changing numbers? So go on, please.
Oh no. Well, I have I have like a master sheet that I use on Excel.
Okay.
With that, I basically have everything to do with the business on one sheet. So I have my sales sheet, which basically just has a chronological tally of my sales with my costs. So with that, if I wanted to, I can just look at the month and think, oh, okay, so I've done this month. What do I need to do next month?
Okay.
In terms of production.
Okay.
But then also looking at my Etsy sales history, I can just track and make sure that I'm not going to sell out things too often.
Right. Had there ever been a situation where something has run out and then you did get a sale for it? And it's something that takes a while to... Yeah. How do you handle that?
Yeah. I'm just honest with people, to be honest. December was a bit crazy. Basically, I've got one kiln, and it needs to do everything perfectly. And
Yes.
December was, the time it decided not to.
Oh no.
So there was so it's the Blue Galaxy mugs again. I had one or two customers where they were meant to have them, and because things normally go well, I tend to have things on Etsy that aren't finished yet. So these mugs, because I know that I will normally have like 10 more out by the end of the week, if I've sold 3, I know that they're going to be ready before my dispatch time.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the kiln had other decisions to, its own mind in December. So it was just essentially like, is this a gift? If it wasn't a gift, then I'd say, are you willing to wait 3 weeks? If it was a gift, I'd say, are you willing to wait 3 weeks and see what they say? Generally, I've never had a customer that's unhappy with the wait time.
Okay.
It was just one of those things, things should have been finished and fine. It was just a fault with the kiln, which then took, 3 weeks to get parts. So I was still firing with the fault in the kiln. It's just things weren't coming out as expected. So I've had to change some photos to be more reflective of what the products are. Because say if I've got an image of a blue mug, most of the time it will come out pretty much to that image. But when I was having these kiln issues, they were coming out much darker. Same glaze, same firing schedule. The only thing was my elements were wearing. So at that point, there was nothing I could do but say, are you happy with this? Or would you like to wait for this amount of time? Or offer them something else.
Wow. Does it scare you to have just one kiln?
It does. I mean, the next thing I would like to do, I mean, the space that I use for my studio isn't big enough for another kiln, but another kiln would definitely make my life easier.
Yeah.
Because because the kiln is also then in my workspace, and because of the toxins that it gives off when it's firing, I can't work in there when it's on. So the kiln, basically my normal day, I'm in there during the day. I will then put the kiln on at about 4 o'clock. It's normally finished by about 6 a.m. the day after. And then I can just vent it out, open all the doors and windows a couple of minutes, and it's fine. And I can be in there for the rest of the day. And I mean, at times like this where it's sort of -1 out, it works quite well because it's like free heating, even though it's not free because you paid for it the night before.
Right, right.
So it works quite well.
Wow. So what does a typical day look like for you? Well, now we know what the evening part
Yeah.
looks like. Before 4 p.m., what are you doing in running your business and just taking care of all the moving parts?
Yeah. So generally the daytime is for making.
Okay.
Say if I'm doing mugs or bowls or things, there's quite a lot of stages to making anything. So if I'm not throwing, I'll be turning. If I'm not on the wheel at all, there's probably glazing that I'm doing to well to keep on top of things. Or sometimes it's just cleaning. There's such a health hazard with silica dust, which is sort of the main component of ceramics, that
Right.
you need to just make sure that everything is clean all the time.
Mm.
It's ceramics is safe. It's a great medium to work with, but the one thing you're always taught is keep everything wet, because you don't want the dust to sort of be
Oh,
air.
to be in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay. And where does the general admin stuff fit into in your day? Handling customer messages and emails and running to the post office.
Yep. So I always handle things as they come through. So my phone is like my point of call for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's customers, I'll message them during the day, because I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing for customer service. If someone messages me, I try and message them straight away, get that out of the way. Plus, it means that if there's potential revenue there, it's going to come quicker.
Yeah.
Um, with that, I tend to do throughout the day. With everything else, so like whether it's photography, whether it's updating my website, Instagram posts, like everything that I would call admin, whether that's social or packaging, that sort of thing, I do in the evenings as much as I can. So my standard work day is kind of all day, every day, but
Right.
I have a lot of time to myself throughout the day as well. So I kind of pick things up as and when, but I'll always dispatch orders same day if I can.
Okay.
But my dispatch times for most items are for the day after. So I tend to arrange collections with Royal Mail for my post, which then gets collected the morning after. So it's fairly carefree, I would say,
Oh, nice.
because I just do it all online, and I don't use the Etsy platform to print my postal labels.
Oh, you
Um,
don't?
no, I don't know why, but then the price isn't any different between doing it that way or not.
Okay.
So I just use the Royal Mail website and just do batches, really. I won't dispatch anything randomly during the day. That I'll always leave it till the evening, so I can do all my packing in one session,
Right.
and do all my label printing and those sorts of things. Because I mean, with posting ceramics, it just takes so many materials, and two, it's so expensive.
Yeah. Because you have to
um,
package them to not break.
yeah. I mean, I mean, and oddly enough, both of the breakages that I've had sort of in my career so far have been to the US. Um,
Of course.
I I had one it was literally like my third or fourth sale on Etsy. That was in 2019, where to be honest, I hadn't packed it properly.
Okay.
I used to just bubble wrap things and then bubble wrap them some more and then just send it in some like craft paper,
Oh,
thinking that
not
that
a
would do the job.
box?
No, sometimes it was a box, sometimes it was craft paper. Um, but I would think, oh, that would be fine because it would be sort of 5 inches of bubble around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was to sort of keep the costs down.
Mm-hmm.
But then after my first breakage, I was like, you can't do this. You need to get some boxes. And that's when I really started thinking about my packaging more as a brand.
Yeah.
So now everything is double boxed. It's I first I wrap it in bubble wrap, then in tissue, which is then tied with a branded card.
Oh,
That goes into its own box, which is branded with tape. Well, my own branded tape, and then that gets put into another box, which is surrounded by pellets. Um, and I haven't had a breakage for the entirety of 2020.
wow.
But I had one literally 2 days ago that went to the States, and I
Again.
don't know how it happened. It was a singular mug, and I don't know what happened in the postal sort of system because both boxes were crushed.
Whoa.
So I'm claiming for that, but things have been okay for shipping so far.
Okay. Now, the branded packaging materials that you use, these are things that I'm assuming when you say branded, it has your Hobbs Ceramics logo
Yeah.
and all that. Where do you get those?
So there's a couple of different things I use. I use branded craft tape, which I get from a company called Sticker Mule.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's in the States, but they're fairly sort of big here. You can get like stickers, you can get tape. It's good because it's recyclable and it's water based.
Okay.
So you're never really going to have an issue with it degrading or anything like that.
Okay.
And I try and be sustainable wherever I can.
Yeah.
And then my A6 postcards that go in every parcel and my business cards, I get all of those from Vistaprint.
Okay. Oh, nice. And so on these you print information about your business and how to get in
Yeah.
touch with you, just so once it gets there, folks remember, where it came from and they can find you easily.
Yes, yeah. So my I've literally just sent some off to get printed because I ended up running out sort of mid-December, which was a little annoying. But it's it's just one of those things. So the business card has a hole in it, so then that gets tied onto the package.
Oh.
And then that one has a direct link to my website and just gives some information on the product. So it says it's lead-free, it says it's food safe and microwave safe, just so that people, they have the usability factor there straight away.
Yes.
The postcard that goes along with the package is more of a thank you. It's like, thank you for supporting a small business, letting them know how much it means to me. And then it has my social contacts on it. So my Facebook page and my Instagram hashtag as well.
Okay. Have you found that by doing this, you get repeat buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I've had, I think probably about 25 repeat customers.
Oh, that's great.
Whether that be sort of through Etsy, there's a fair few of them are through Etsy, but some of them are offside of Etsy. But I think with the care and attention that I take with the packaging now, and then sort of the whole unwrapping experience as a whole, I think that has helped sort of, because my products aren't the cheapest.
Right.
So it's sort of it needs to reflect the premium feel of the unwrap.
Yes, I get that. Okay, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's relevant in that, yes, I did get a couple of items from some Etsy sellers over the holidays, and I tell you, the experience of opening something up that was packaged with thought behind it, and with the thought of the experience that the recipient would have, even though it wasn't a gift, it was just how they packaged it. Just felt so luxurious, and like, I don't know, I felt pampered just getting to the actual product because of everything else that they did before that. I hope that makes sense. But
no, 100%. And I think sort of with you're on Etsy now and you're sort of trying to compete. the one way you can make yourself different is really trying to sort of connect with that customer at their end. Like I want my customers to return to me because one, they get great service, and two, they have a great unwrapping experience.
Yes. I never thought about it till you said it, but now that you mentioned it, I just remembered I felt so good opening those packages because it just felt so nice. Like, oh, wow, this is so wonderful. um, so one of the things you said is you don't use Etsy shipping because it's not different. You don't get a different price than Royal Mail, which is the opposite here in the US. If you go directly to the post office, you pay retail, but if you do it through Etsy's shipping platform, we get some a little discount. Do you offer free shipping, and have you found that strategy has helped to increase sales in any way?
So I did offer free shipping literally for the entirety of 2020, and I think it has an impact in sales. But then I was doing so much research between sort of September and December, sort of thinking, well, do I need to keep doing free shipping? Because this year I've actually taken the free shipping off. I've adjusted my prices and added shipping back in, but it's what I would call a subsidized price for shipping. So all in all, it cost me about, for like say an average package, it cost me £5.80 to send it, plus about £2.20 in shipping materials. So before I was say selling a mug for £28 with free shipping. Now I'm selling a mug for £26 with a shipping charge of £3.99.
Okay.
So overall, there's a £2 price increase, but the price per item is lower, which will hopefully encourage people to buy more. And also, it means that, say, if you're buying 2 items, you're not paying for shipping twice.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yes, which was or is an inherent problem with rolling in shipping into your price and just charging it flat.
Yeah.
And yeah, that bothered me too, because I'm like, oh, they're actually paying twice for shipping and they don't need to.
And the problem is if you're buying something from the States, you're not only paying with my previous prices, like with the inclusive shipping, you're not only paying for the mug, you're then paying for UK shipping, plus then you're paying for US shipping.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm trying this year. So I sort of changed everything to non-free shipping for the 1st of Jan.
Okay.
So we'll see sort of what happens. I've had a couple of sales already this year, so it's not been, it doesn't seem to have deterred people. I hope it doesn't, because it is better value.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see, because I mean, when I'm looking on Etsy, I do like to categorize by free shipping.
Oh, you do?
I do. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Like, you like to save where you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But it's not really, I think if you don't make a product, or if you don't work in sort of a commercial environment, you don't really have the thought process of it's not really free.
Yes.
you know.
So speaking about pricing, how do you determine what to charge for your actual items? Because I know there's so much, just hearing the process that each individual item goes through just, to be made. How do you assign value to each of them?
So it's really difficult, and it's something that I've struggled with for sort of the last 12 months, but time and time again, no matter who you speak to in the sort of the pottery world, there are some mugs for £19. There are some mugs for £100. Some of it is the inherent value that you would put on it yourself. for your time, and then the other part of it is your material costs. Because I mean, whether you charge £100 for a mug or 30, your material costs are most likely going to be somewhat the same. I basically go through a process of my product costs. So the cost of the clay, the cost of the firing, so how much electricity that costs, and do that for both firings. The cost of the glaze material, which is the glass on the outside, and then an hourly rate, but broken down to how much time it actually takes to make that item. So I normally charge, I pay myself £14 per hour.
Okay.
But say a mug to throw only takes me 5 minutes. So I break that time down into that mug.
Oh, okay.
And then I do the same for the trimming process, the time to glaze that, whether it be a dipping or a brush on glaze. And then I add on some admin time as well, whether that be, you know, the time you spend loading the kiln or photographing, packaging, that sort of thing. So when you take your hourly rate and break it down that way, and add it all together, that's how I tend to get the cost of the item. So I can be fairly confident in that. But then to get the retail price, what I then do is add in my packaging costs, and then I normally times it by about 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
It really depends, because there's sort of the old tale of like, you take your costs and then you times it by 2 for wholesale and times it by 2 again for retail.
Yeah.
If I did that for everything, then my things would be much more expensive than they are, and I want my work to be accessible. I think, you know, I think everyone should be able to afford a sort of a luxury handmade item. So some of it I will tinker, but I try and make sure that there's about a 45 to 50% profit margin after costs on every item.
Okay. Sounds like you come up with a very intricate system. Do you use any tools to track all these numbers? Just as
so literally just Excel.
Okay.
So I have a sheet where I basically, so when I come up with a new product, so say I'm making a new size of bowl, I have a sheet that I use which calculates the price per gram of clay, and then the same sort of theory for glazed materials, that sort of thing. So I can literally just say, if a bowl is 500 grams, just type it in and it will give me the cost of the weight. So it was a lot of work to set up the sheet, but now like I can literally just plug in like 2 or 3 numbers in a couple of minutes, and I've got a cost which is quite easy to use.
Oh, nice. So you must be an Excel whiz, because, well, not everybody can make Excel do calculations and stuff.
No, it's one of those things where it's like I make it sound like I know things about Excel, but really I don't. I can make it do the normal sums.
Yeah.
And other than that, I think I'd be quite lost. But I've used Excel quite a lot in the businesses I've worked with, so it's not something that I'm incredibly confident with, and some things I'll have to look up online, but it's not something that I'm sort of too scared of.
Yeah. I have a running joke with a friend of mine who is an Excel maven, and whenever she'll say something about Excel, and I try and sound smart. I say, well, can you do a VLOOKUP? I have no idea how to do a VLOOKUP, but I know it's like something Excel does, and not everyone knows how to do it. And if you can do a VLOOKUP, then you can really manipulate an Excel file.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I cannot do. It's something that is on the sheets that I used to work in my old work, but I never had to make them myself, and I don't think I ever want to.
I don't want to either. So let's talk about how you promote your Etsy shop. I know you mentioned social media earlier in our conversation. What strategy do you use, if any, and what platforms have you found work the best for you?
So strategy-wise, I haven't really had one up until now, really. I kind of want 2021 to be the year where I say this is getting scheduled for this time and it's going to be done, rather than I need to make an Instagram story and it needs to be done today.
Yes.
So every time I'm in the studio, if there's anything that isn't too repetitive or too hard to tell kind of what you're doing, then I'll try and do an Instagram story there and then, and kind of document my day as much as possible. My actual Instagram posts tend to be a little bit more curated, on my Instagram feed. They tend to be sort of more showcasing product, or sort of more of an artistic shot of what I'm doing in the studio, rather than like the live shots of me mixing glazes or painting product or sort of throwing on the wheel that would go on my stories. So Instagram I kind of use for that, and my strategy is always to try and post when my followers are most active based on my insights, which tends to be like 7 p.m.
Every day?
But then, no, not every day. I try and do a story every day, and I find that has worked quite well with sort of trying to get my followers to engage more. But with actual posts, I probably do 1 or 2 a week at most. Sometimes it's once every 2 weeks, but that's quite rare now. I find it's just getting into the habit of it, which is the most difficult thing. But once you're there, it's okay.
Yes, getting into the habit, like you said, is the most difficult thing. But I struggle with that too. But yes, once you have a rhythm going, it's so easy, and it just feels like everything starts to fall into place.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, I sometimes get a little bit sort of concerned with what I'm posting, because it's, if I'm making mugs on a Monday and then the Monday after I'm still making more mugs, I always used to have this thing of like, is it just boring? Am I sort of repeating content? But actually, I don't think you are. I think, and even just giving a snippet of something on a day is better than not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
But over time, I've tried to sort of slowly build up a little bank of images that I can then post if I don't have anything to post. So at least there is always something.
Yeah.
But this year, I'm hopefully going to get a bit more creative with my content, I would hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that works out for you. I always come into a new year with great plans for social media, and that's the hardest thing for me, is social media.
Yeah, no, same here. It's I like using it, and like my Facebook page is more of like I would say like a mini website where I can reach people, and that works really well for my local clients, telling them about Christmas markets or that sort of thing.
Right.
But with Instagram, it's trying to reach new people and creating things that are interesting for other people to see. Is I kind of have to dedicate time to that now, rather than I'll just film myself doing this, because it's just not as interesting.
Yeah. Where do you find that you have more engagement, on Facebook or Instagram?
As much as I hate to say it, I get more engagement on Facebook. I don't know why. People just seem to be more receptive with the things that I post there. And I tend to get more sales. Well, I tend to get more active engagement and people wanting to buy from Facebook.
Okay.
But I do get the odd sale from Instagram, if I'm like just posting stories and someone asks sort of how much something is.
Hmm.
But it's really odd because I would expect Instagram to be sort of my bread and butter in a sense.
Because of the
But my
visual aspect.
yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I could just sometimes post a non-visual post on Facebook, like a message or something, and I'll get loads of interactions from it. But I don't know if maybe that's because my Facebook following is very much people that are either local to the area or people local to the UK. There's not as much international on there. Whereas my Instagram followers are like they're from everywhere, and most of them are potters.
Okay. Interesting. So, do you sell through, because I know Facebook now has Facebook shops, which towards the end of 2020, they came out in full force, like actually saying they were, well, they didn't say it, but there was speculation that the Facebook shops were were Facebook's direct response to Etsy shops.
Yeah.
Have you tried the Facebook shops?
No, not yet. It's one of those things where it's another thing to do.
It is another thing to do. Yes.
And I think with all things, like, do one thing well
Yeah.
and then do the others. Because I mean, Etsy is good for now, but it's not as good as it could be.
Mm.
I still need to work on my SEO slightly, and really, I mean, I at the moment I'm working on trying to get things sort of back up onto my, get listings back up ready for this year.
Okay. So for someone like you, because this is a business that was really born out of a passion craft, something that you just were drawn to and had an affinity for. Do you find that sometimes, even now that you get into creative ruts, and if you do, how do you bring yourself out?
Oh, it's quite a difficult one, because I think no matter who you are and whatever you're making, it's always quite hard to stay motivated all the time. Especially sort of after the year we've all had. If I am having a massive creative sort of block, I tend to just stop, because there are days where I can throw and throw and throw, and pots are coming out of my hands, and it's great. But there are other days that I sit down at the wheel and the clay just twists and turns and falls off, and I'll go through like 3 or 4 kilos, and I still haven't got anything like presentable. Days like that, just stop. There's no point in sort of carrying on in that sense if your body isn't in it, because it will come back the day after. It's very hard if you, I would imagine it's very hard if you've got a volume of sales that you need to push through and carry on in that sense. But if I'm having that sort of physical creative block, then I will just step away from it. In terms of new products and sort of my mental creativity, sometimes the juices just don't flow. That can be quite difficult. So at that point, I tend to just turn to social media, see what other people are doing, and try and get some inspiration. It is difficult, I think, especially when you're doing something creative. And at that point, it's also very difficult not to think sort of, are my objects good enough in that sense? Like a bit of imposter syndrome if you're looking through Instagram all the time at
yes,
other people that do the things that you do. So it can be a challenge, but I think you just need to be sort of true to yourself and make if you're ready to make and you're making things, no matter what sort of craft you're doing, then just carry on making. But if you're having a block, don't worry about it. Like, just take a break, do other things that you enjoy doing, and then come back to it.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, taking a break, I think, is key sometimes, regardless of what you do, because I think sometimes we just get so bogged down that we create those mental and creative blocks.
Yeah,
And I think,
I completely agree.
yeah. James, what are some things, or even if it's just one thing, that you can say, looking back, even say just on the past year, that you did that you think has contributed to some of the success you're seeing, or that can help you be even more successful as you go into this new year with your business?
I think it's definitely been understanding what works, and if something doesn't work, then stop making it. That sort of ties in with like my SEO as well. I think before I wasn't really focusing, well, in sort of like the previous years, I wasn't really focusing on a solid product offering, and B, actually getting people to sort of see my products. So that's definitely helped. I now sort of know how to bring people to my shop, and I have a more of an understanding of what's going to work in the future.
Nice. Are there any lessons that you've learned? Well, actually, I can pick one out: the shipping that you learned that one. Anything else, as far as running your business, that you figured out wasn't sustainable or wasn't workable, and you figured out a better way of doing?
I think the main thing has been the costs and the prices, because it's been like an ongoing experiment with Excel to sort of work out what is actually the best thing to do over the past year, and actually making the right amount of profit from each item, because I used to sell things for cheap, and wouldn't even include my my labor cost or the material cost as a solid number. I would just be like, oh, that's about right for that item, and then sell it, or selling to friends and family, that sort of thing. But ever since I've sort of thought, well, I need to make some profit for both myself and the business here, that it's really changed the financials, to be honest.
That makes sense. What is one thing about selling on Etsy that you're really enjoying right now? And then on the flip side, are there any features that you would like to see Etsy implement that don't currently exist on the platform?
So I mean, at the moment, to be honest, I'm really enjoying the creativity that you can get with Etsy, like with listings, and because I uploaded some new items for this year, with some new style of photography, and just playing around with the way my description looks is something I'm really enjoying. It would be nice to have some more versatility in terms of how we say label the features of our products. And the other thing I really am excited for this year is to try and get into listing videos. I really do need to, I think, with something like a ceramic object where someone, if you're purchasing it, would really want to hold it and see it before you buy it, a video might really make the difference. But in terms of features I'd like to see, it would be good to be able to see more of the financial side on Etsy, rather than having to break it all down yourself on like the monthly CSVs you get. It would be nice to have like a more clear and concise breakdown, because I always find that I'm trying to calculate everything outside of Etsy because it doesn't really give you the clearest numbers in one place.
Yes. I always get a headache when it comes to tax time. And what I started doing was just every month, at the end of every month, just doing my numbers so that at the end of the year it's easier. But it still is kind of cumbersome anyway.
Oh yeah, same here. Like I sort of, I have like the two sheets now. I have like the one sheet for my sales and costs, but then I have another sheet just for the numbers that I set, same as you, just download the exports.
Yeah.
But even then it's clumsy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not the most intuitive thing. Like, I've had to put my own calculations in to like pull the numbers out and stuff.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Whereas really it would be nice to have all of that sort of in-house,
Yeah.
just on the on the site, and actually like have the option to, because you can't really track things that you're selling either. Like, I would love to be able to say what's my best seller for this month without having to look at spreadsheets. You know, I mean, I don't know if there is an easier way to do it with Etsy, but
Well, if I find one, I'll let you know. James, what advice would you have for someone who is, and I know you're kind of in the thick of it, which is why I would like you to speak to this person who is coming out of 2020 and it being the year it was for everyone, some worse than others, and wanting to just focus on growing their Etsy shop, but still, it's maybe they're now thrust into this out of necessity. What would you tell that person? What encouragement would you have for that person just going forward?
I would say just do it at the end of the day. I think so. Well, if this year has taught us anything, it's that sort of the time that you do have to do things is fairly precious. If there's a passion that sort of you're not pursuing, or if there's an idea that you want to sort of move forward with, like with Etsy or something else, then just invest that time if you have it, like straight away. You can only move forward with whatever idea you have, and there's always going to be things that sort of trip you up along the way, or problems that arise. But if you don't do it, you'll regret it. And why not? That's all I can say.
Yeah, thank you. And that's encouraging, yes. Do you have an Etsy shop shout out? This could be another seller that whose work you particularly enjoy, or another store that you've shopped at and you like their products, that you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, of course. Well, there was a lovely lady called Mel that I sort of started to speak to a couple of months ago, and she runs an Etsy shop called Pots About Pottery.
Oh.
So she's sort of someone that's sort of quite inspirational with the work that she does, and I just really like the aesthetic of her pottery, and she's willing to talk as well, which is something that I think you find sometimes either with Etsy or with craft, that not everyone is willing to sort of share information or ideas. And I'm a fairly open book when it comes to sort of everything I do. So it's really nice to have sort of someone to talk to when it's about things like that.
Yeah. Is she in the UK?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I will link to Mel's Etsy shop. It's Pots About Pottery. So I'll look it up and I'll put a link to it in the show notes for this episode. So if anyone wants to go check out what Mel is doing, please do so and let her know that James sent you. James, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, maybe carry on this conversation or reach out about other things that we might not have talked about, what's the best way people can connect with you after this?
Yeah, of course. They can either use the contact form on my website, hobbsceramics.com, or literally just contact me on Instagram, which is at Hobbs Ceramics. I'll reply to messages within sort of a day or two. But yeah, literally any questions anyone has, I'm always willing to sort of share my journey with them in person.
Lovely. Thank you. So I will put links to everywhere you can connect with James in the show notes for this episode as well. Again, his Etsy shop is Hobbs Ceramics, and same as his website, it's hobbsceramics.com. But I will have links to that. James, what are your hopes for 2020 as we round up? How do you hope? We're at the beginning of the year now. What do you hope to be saying come December 2021?
I mean, with the ceramics, I'm really hoping that I can sort of take it to the next level this year.
Yeah.
It's probably like a good 2 years off of being sort of a full-time income, but
Okay.
I'm hoping that I can sort of increase my sales maybe 20 to 25% for this year.
Yeah.
But just keep it going. It's been full force momentum since March, so try and keep it up and develop the business this year.
I like that. I like that you're being very what's the word? Not just deliberate, but also
Optimistic?
Oh no, yeah. Well, yes, optimistic. But realistic about your growth trajectory. Yeah, and I wish you all the best. I do hope that you'll be able to say that and even more come December 2021. Can we catch up again?
Yes,
Later
yeah, please do. I'm
and
always happy
see
to
how
talk.
good. Thank you. We'll do that. Thanks so much for being my guest on the podcast. I really have enjoyed speaking with you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you.
And I thank you for listening to the podcast. If you want to connect with me, go to convome.com. There's a contact form there if you just want to send me a message. If you want to be my guest, go to the Be My Guest tab. And if you are looking to set up your e-commerce website, go to the Services tab. I have some resources there for you, step-by-step instructions. And of course, if you can't do it yourself, I have information about that for you as well. Again, you can connect with me on social at Etsy Conversations on Instagram. And I will be back with another episode next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.